Hi everybody, and welcome to my video introducing the first of two videos, actually, two videos, introducing the Canon EOS RT, sometimes called the EOS 630 or 600 RT. All three of them are interchangeable, though the badge on the front of it only says RT. It is an interchangeable lens SLR with 6-zone evaluative metering, center-weighted averaging metering, and 6.5% spot metering. The shutter speeds range from 30 seconds to 1/2000th of a second and include bulb. Through the viewfinder, you have 0.8x magnification and 95% frame coverage, which means that 3% of, if this were what you were seeing through the viewfinder, 3% on the top, the bottom, and the sides would be on the image frame, but are not in the viewfinder. And all of this would be magnified to 80% of the image size on the frame. It has a standard autofocus focusing screen that is not interchangeable, and a 1/125th of a second flash sync. The EOS RT's target market when it was released was the advanced amateur. It's very good for things like newsprint photographers, where image quality is not as much of an issue as with other media. And one of the reasons for that is and sports photographers and things like that, because it has a pellicle mirror in it, meaning that with most cameras, SLR cameras, when you take an image, the mirror flips up. The mirror does not flip up in this camera. The mirror allows some amount of light through to the film plane and some amount of light, oh come on now, there we go, and some amount of light up to the viewfinder, and does not have to move for that reason. It's also very good for wildlife photography, and it is a very capable camera with many pro-level features. This was produced by Canon from 1989 to 1992. Some sources I found said it was only produced for 1 year in 1989 and marketed for 2 years after that, or 3 years after that. I'm not entirely sure which is correct. It was produced in Japan. Canon products, lenses, and camera bodies have a code to help you determine where it came from. My camera has a code inside of it. You might be able to see shining on the cassette chamber. Here we go. It says FD1002. So the first letter in the code represents the facility where it was made, F being Fukushima. If you have a camera that says U, that was made in Utsunomiya, and O is for Wita. So those are the three possibilities, F, U, and O. The D is a year code for 1989, and the 10 is a month code for October. O2 is an internal Canon code that's not in use for of no use for aging the camera. I don't know what the internal code means either. For more information, and if you want to look up other lenses or bodies that you have, there's a link in the references where you can find the table that tells you what those codes mean. Canon only made 25,000 of these RT bodies, and they retailed for $1,000 in 1989. That's $1,880 in 2014 dollars. So these were very, very expensive cameras, and pretty capable, especially very expensive, especially though considering that they were designed for advanced amateurs. They were preceded by, who knows, I couldn't find anything. Probably consider they being preceded by the 600 and 630, even though they were a type of the 600 and 630. They were sold concurrently with the EOS 1, the EOS 700, the EOS 630 or 600, and the EOS 10. And these were followed by the Elan 100. And So what they did for the RT was they took an EOS 630 or 600, depending on which market you're in, body, and fixed it with a pellicle mirror. And that's the only difference between the two. In fact, the 630 has a cable release, which the RT can use. I wish I'd kept the cable release, but I didn't. And some other nifty features like that. So if you have your manual, we're going to look at the different features on the camera. In the second video, I'll show you how to use the menu system and explain what the features do. The first thing we have are the camera strap lugs. This is where you would connect your camera strap. Over here we have the shooting mode selector, which is the one on top, the exposure compensation button, which is the one on the bottom, and combined they create the multiple exposure function if you push them both at the same time. Here we have the on-off beep, which is right now is L for lock, A for automatic, beep for beep, and those are the three functions on it. It has a marking that says RT, but I think that's just to indicate the model. I don't think that it actually does anything. We have the hot shoe with X sync right here, and that's where you would put your flash. It does not have an in-body flash. We've got the LCD panel right here, which tells you what's going on with the camera. The control wheel in front of it, the shutter actuation button, and that's all that's on top. On the front, we've got the grip over here. We've got the lens mount right here. We've got, I believe that's the autofocus assist light, or the, no, I'm sorry, that's the self-timer light. We've got the lens mount and the lens locking pin right here, electrical contacts for the lens, the mirror box with the pellicle mirror inside of it, and of course the badge. Here's the lens release button. And we have also, there's two buttons right here. The one on top is the depth of field preview button, and then M is the manual aperture set button. On the camera's back, we have the film indicator window, so when you put your film in there, you can look through it to see what type, number of exposures, and speed it is. Then we have the film back, the viewfinder up here, and there's some accessory grooves, so you can put accessories in it or a cover over it. Have the LCD illumination button right here, and all that does is nothing in this much light. But when you're in the dark, and I can't really see it either, but in the dark, it makes a blue illumination for the LCD. And then next to the LCD illumination button, over here we have the partial metering button. Next, behind this cover right here, it's got a little tiny magnet in it to hold it in place. Come on, there we go. Over here behind the cover we have the film rewind button. The yellow button is the autofocus mode button. The blue button is the drive mode button, and the gray button is the battery check button. If you push these two together, it gives you continuous focus, autofocus, and if you push these two together, if you push the yellow and blue ones together, you get to adjust your ISO manually. If you push the gray and yellow ones together, then you can do auto exposure bracketing. On the camera's bottom, there's not honestly a whole lot to see. We have the serial number and made in Japan. We have the tripod bushing. And the reason that there's not a whole lot on the bottom is because the battery is behind this cover, and in the second video, we'll take a look at how to change the battery. All right, so inside the camera, on this side right here, you push in a button and then slide down a little lever, and that opens up the camera's back. There it is. And what we have in here are the film cassette placement area. This is where the film cassettes go when you load them. You can see the little electronic contacts in there are DX codes. Code readers so that the camera knows what kind of film you've put in. Film guide pin and a film guide bumper up here, and then we have 4 film guide rails. The top and bottom ones keep the film in place this way. The middle ones keep the film flat on plane in conjunction with the film pressure plate on the back door. We'll see in a minute. Here we have the shutter curtain. This is the film tension sprocket and the film take-up spool. The indicator line where you have to feed the front of the film to. Some contacts for the data back. And then taking the film back off of the camera. Here we have some rollers that help keep the film moving and flat on plane. We have the film pressure plate, which keeps the film flat. It nests up against here and sandwiches the film between the plate and the guide rails. Here we have a cassette, a spring to help keep this cassette in place, and foam surround to the window so that you can see what type of film you have without light getting into the camera. And as you can see, this has a removable film back. I've never actually taken it off. Let's see if I can get it back in now. There we go, just like that. So some things that are interesting about the Canon EOS RT. This was the first autofocus SLR with a pellicle mirror. The pellicle mirror, again, being the mirror inside of it that doesn't move when the image is taken. There were some manual focus SLRs previous to this camera that had pellicle mirrors, but this was the first autofocus. And that's a pretty big deal, actually, because the pellicle mirror takes a lot of abuse when the shutter is going and the camera is moving, because the shutter movement affects the whole camera body. And so one of the problems that apparently these RTs have had over time, and I'm fortunate not to have experienced it, is the pellicle mirror shattering or cracking because of camera body torquing. Pellicle mirrors have some advantages. They remove the mirror slap vibration. So instead of the mirror coming up and hitting a mirror bumper and coming back down, which causes a lot of movement in the camera and can cause image blur, these don't have that, so they're very good for image sharpness. But because some light is always not going to the film, the pellicle, and because then light has to go through another layer of glass, there is some image quality loss due to the mirrors. It is very good for sports and nature photography because there's no mirror blackout. Since there's no mirror to go up, then you never lose sight of the subject, and it makes it very easy to track a moving object. There's also no delay between the shutter button being pushed and the shutter actuation because the mirror doesn't have to move. So typical SLR shutter, on a typical SLR with a mirror that moves out of the way, from a shutter button to image actually being taken, the delay is between 90 and 130 milliseconds. On the Canon EOS RT, it's 8 milliseconds. Half depressing the shutter release readies the camera to take an instant reaction image, which is just the difference in that is absolutely staggering for sports photography. Let me tell you, it's really impressive. This camera is great also for astrophotography and macro photography because there's no moving mirror, meaning that there's no mirror bounce that could reduce image sharpening. Some drawbacks exist, though. There is slight image quality reduction because the image always has to pass through the mirror. There's a dimmer viewfinder because not all of the light is reflected, and a slower shutter speed, about 2/3 of a stop slower, because some of the light is always diverted away from the film to the viewfinder. So there are a couple things not to do with your camera. First one is don't touch the shutter, because it's a really good way to brick an otherwise fine camera. Don't touch the mirror because the acids on your fingers will take the silver off, and these are surface coated mirrors. And touching the mirror is a really good way to destroy a mirror over time, and that, because the mirror is always in the image path, will degrade your image quality. Do not leave your car or lenses do not leave your camera or lenses in your car because they will get heat damaged, and that can ruin the camera pretty quickly. Same thing with the lens. Also, don't keep your camera or any photo gear in a plastic bag or plastic box because moisture will get in and you will get fungus and mildew, and it will ruin your gear as well. Also, don't let your camera get wet. This is not a pro-grade camera. It does not have weather sealing, but it does have lots of electronics that will be ruined in creative and exciting ways if they're wet. Just remember that your camera is a precision tool and should be handled with care and respect. And as long as you take care of your camera, it will take good photos for you. If this video was helpful for you, please leave me a thumbs up. That lets me know I'm on the right track. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them in the comments section below. I'm pretty good about responding fairly quickly. If you have suggestions for videos, please let me know. And if I have the technical know-how and equipment, I'm more than happy to film those for you. If you have, if you subscribe, you'll know when I have more videos that are released. And also check out the second video to learn how to actually use this camera. And one last really quick thing. Thank you guys for watching.